Karmelo Anthony has been charged officially as an adult for first-degree murder. My heart dropped, and I lost my fucking appetite. And I think it's because I just know that feeling, and I feel like I know what the outcome gonna be because this is Texas.
Karmelo Anthony's parents weren't just asking for leniency. They were begging the judge not to try their 17-year-old son as an adult. With tears in their eyes and a stack of letters from community leaders, teachers, and even former classmates, they pleaded for mercy, arguing that Karmelo was still a child, a misguided teen, not a cold-blooded criminal. The courtroom was tense. BLM representatives sat in silent support, handing over documents of their own, studies on juvenile sentencing disparities, case files showing bias in prosecutorial discretion, and statements claiming this trial was shaping up to be another example of the system being weaponized against young black men. But here's the twist that shocked everyone. The prosecution fired back with chilling video evidence and eyewitness reports, highlighting that over 30 people, including coaches, students, and staff, witnessed the incident. They emphasized that Karmelo brought the knife himself and allegedly confessed on the scene. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment brawl. According to them, it was premeditated violence. And as that footage played, you could feel the emotional ground shift in the room. Even some of Karmelo's supporters looked shaken. Now, the question isn't just about what happened that day. It's about whether the justice system should weigh intention, youth, and race more heavily than brutal reality. So you start to wonder, if Karmelo were white, would he already be back home? Is this justice, or a lesson being made? And should a 17-year-old be defined forever by one violent moment? Or does accountability require adult consequences? This courtroom just became the battleground for more than one young man's future. It's now a national debate about justice itself. You hear the term tried as an adult, but what does that really mean when the defendant is just 17? For Karmelo Anthony, it means the difference between a few years in a juvenile facility and possibly decades in prison. It means being housed with grown men, facing adult sentencing guidelines, and living with a permanent record that could shadow him for life. That's exactly what his legal team is fighting against. In court, they painted a picture of a teenager struggling under pressure. They referenced grades slipping in the months leading up to the stabbing, anxiety attacks, and a history of being bullied. According to them, Karmelo wasn't a criminal. He was a scared kid who snapped, a child who made a mistake under extreme emotional distress. And most importantly, they argued, he still had the capacity to grow, to be rehabilitated, to return to society better than he left it. But prosecutors weren't buying it. They countered with chilling clarity, showing that Karmelo allegedly brought the weapon from home, concealed it, and stabbed Austin Metcalf in what they described as a deliberate and targeted act. In their words, this was not a reaction, this was a decision. And they argued that the public has a right to feel safe, that charging Karmelo as an adult isn't just about punishment, but deterrence. And here's what's tearing people apart online. Do you prioritize justice for the victim or rehabilitation for the offender? If a 17-year-old can plan violence, should he face the same consequences as a 27-year-old? Or are we letting fear override the hope for reform? Because at this point, the judge isn't just weighing evidence, he's deciding what kind of justice system this really is. While the courtroom debates swirl around sentencing, a powerful wave of outside support has entered the picture, and it's louder than ever. Black Lives Matter organizers have now officially thrown their full weight behind Karmelo Anthony, publicly urging the judge to show compassion and reject the motion to charge him as an adult. Across social media and at courthouse rallies, BLM leaders are making their stance clear. We are not defending violence. We're defending a child failed by his environment. Signs wave with messages like, "Protect our youth," and "Reform, not ruin." To them, Karmelo isn't just one teenager on trial. He's a reflection of a system that too often criminalizes young black boys while ignoring the trauma they carry. But their support isn't going unchallenged. Critics are accusing BLM of hypocrisy, claiming the organization is defending someone who took a life. Some argue the movement is playing favorites, offering compassion only when the accused fits a certain narrative. Others feel this is a case that should remain in the courtroom, not on protest signs. And then there's the Metaf family. They've stayed relatively quiet during these rallies, but their silence carries weight. Every chant, every speech, every media clip calling Karmelo a victim of the system feels like salt in a still fresh wound. Their son Austin is gone, and watching the accused gain national sympathy while they grieve in private, that's a pain no courtroom can fix. So now, the question is this: can justice and empathy coexist, or does siding with one automatically silence the other? Because in this trial, it's not just the law on display, it's the values of an entire nation. Inside the courtroom, the legal debate shifts into its most critical phase yet. Karmelo's attorneys present a deeply emotional argument centered around one word: potential. According to them, charging Karmelo as an adult would mean throwing away a young life that still has room to change, grow, and heal. They speak of a boy who had never been in serious trouble before this, a kid raised in a turbulent neighborhood surrounded by influence far bigger than himself. His lawyer paints a picture of a scared teen, reactionary, yes, but not evil, not irredeemable. They cite school records, mental health evaluations, and testimonials from teachers and coaches who say Karmelo just needs guidance, not prison bars. The defense strategy is clear. Make the judge feel the weight of what it means to sentence a teenager to adult time in an adult system. They even reference past cases where young offenders rehabilitated and went on to serve their communities. They want Karmelo seen as a case for reform, not retribution. But prosecutors push back hard. They argue that the severity of the crime, bringing a weapon, initiating the altercation, and ultimately ending a life, requires adult accountability. They say the justice system can't afford to gamble on redemption when the consequences were already so final for Austin Metcalf. He made an adult decision, the DA argues. He should face adult consequences. This isn't just a legal tug-of-war, it's a moral standoff. Can a moment of violence define a whole life? And should justice consider the person Karmelo could become, or only the person he was in that one fateful moment? The judge listens in silence, but the weight of the decision is growing by the minute. Outside the courtroom, the atmosphere shifts from legal procedure to passionate protest. A growing wave of BLM supporters gathers beyond the courthouse steps, holding signs that say, "Justice means fairness," and "Don't let the system eat our youth." Their chants echo the same message Karmelo's legal team made inside, that a 17-year-old doesn't belong in a prison built for hardened criminals. This movement isn't just about one teenager, it's about what his case represents. Activists argue that Black youth are disproportionately tried as adults compared to their white peers, especially when the charges are violent. And in their eyes, Karmelo's situation is a textbook example of the system's racial imbalance. They're not asking for a free pass. They're demanding the same mercy and consideration that's been shown in other cases, with a different skin color attached. Meanwhile, counter-protesters arrive, quiet at first, but determined. Some are grieving supporters of the Metcalf family. Others are concerned citizens who believe justice is being overshadowed by identity politics. Their message? That accountability can't be softened by public pressure. That if someone takes a life, age shouldn't be a shield. The courthouse becomes a line in the sand, two groups shouting across emotional lines. Police stand between them, trying to hold the peace. But on social media, the noise only grows. Hashtags trend, news outlets report live. And suddenly, this isn't just a trial anymore. It's a national conversation about justice, race, age, and power. You start to wonder, what happens if the judge bows to public pressure? Or what if he ignores it entirely? Because either way, someone is walking away feeling robbed of justice. Inside the courtroom, the battle shifts to the expert witnesses. Karmelo's defense brings forward a clinical psychologist who specializes in juvenile brain development. She explains how teenagers, especially under high stress or perceived threat, often act impulsively, not with intent, but with instinct. According to her findings, Karmelo's reaction the night of the incident was consistent with fight-or-flight behavior, not premeditation. The courtroom listens closely as she details how the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for judgment and decision-making, isn't fully developed until the mid-20s. It's a biological fact, not an excuse, she says. And in her view, sending Karmelo into an adult facility would do far more harm than good. But the prosecution fires back just as hard. They argue that Karmelo wasn't a scared kid. He was fully aware of his actions. They point to video footage showing him standing his ground, holding the weapon with control, and walking away afterward without panic. To them, this wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. Their own expert argues that not all juveniles are the same, and that some are mature enough to know exactly what they're doing in the moment. The courtroom grows tense. Even some jurors visibly shift in their seats, trying to process two conflicting truths. So now the question becomes, is this a case of a teenager making a tragic mistake? Or a young man who knew the consequences of his violence? And as you listen to both sides tear apart each other's arguments, you realize, this decision won't just shape Karmelo's future. It might reshape how the justice system treats all minors moving forward. Because when science meets law, the verdict isn't just about guilt. It's about what kind of society we want to be. The judge leans forward, glancing between both tables. The defense, anchored by Karmelo's trembling parents, and the prosecution, firm and unyielding. It's a moment loaded with tension, not just for what it means to this family, but what it signals to the nation. After hours of emotional pleas, expert testimony, and a courtroom that feels like it's held together by a thread, the decision is near. But before the gavel falls, the judge announces one final recess. And the room erupts again. not in chaos, but in murmurs, speculation, anxious energy. Outside, a crowd gathers. BLM activists hold signs not just in support of Karmelo, but in demand for reform. Justice doesn't mean revenge, one woman tells a reporter. It means understanding how we got here in the first place. Another activist adds, "We're not saying he's innocent, we're saying he's a kid, and kids need rehabilitation, not a cage." Meanwhile, the Metaf family walks past silently, visibly shaken. To them, this pause feels like justice delayed. Again, their supporters ask a different question. If not now, when is accountability ever real? And you, watching from the sidelines, start to understand just how deep this goes. This isn't just about a trial. It's about a country wrestling with what to do when grief, justice, and race collide in the courtroom. The judge's upcoming ruling won't just decide where Karmelo serves time. It may determine how a generation of young Black teens is judged in the years to come. So now you ask yourself, what message will this send to the next Karmelo, to the next family on either side of tragedy? Because no matter how the court rules, this case will echo long after the gavel drops.